In other news, we're tracking for you. Some learners in Roodepoort in Johannesburg who were meant to register for matric have been left stranded. They were part of the pre-primary Achievers and Tutor Centre in Florida, They were students there. And that institution has been found to be unregistered with the Department of Education, or rather not registered with the Department of Education. Parents are understandably frustrated, they're desperate, and they want the school principal held accountable. In fact, joining us this afternoon is two parents, Riaz Saleh and Karen Damons. To both of you, thanks very much indeed for joining us. And Riaz, I heard you speaking to Anela Mdoda this morning on 947. I can't imagine the desperation of your situation. Perhaps just take us back to, you've got a son in or a child in matric this year. The deadline to register for the final exams is now. And I understand you're unable to do so. Why?
Yes, thank you so much. So I'll just give you some background. I enrolled my son in 2023 at Pre-Primary Achievers and Tutoring Centre with the understanding that we are in the FET phase of the education phase. That means grade 10, 11 and 12. We've received over the years for grade 10 and 11, we've received reports with great marks and even promotions from grade 10 to grade 11 and last year from grade 11 to grade 12. I've got two daughters who have done matric prior, so I'm quite familiar with the matriculant process and how that works. And we started asking questions in terms of registration, in terms of items like when can we start applying for identity documents, when must we submit identity documents, and all of that fell on deaf ears. No feedback. It was then that we started inquiring and finding out what is happening. Is there registration happening and all of that. As an individual family, we weren't comfortable with the information we received, and we decided to jump ship to another tutoring center. And that particular tutoring center then assisted us with registration. It was then found on that registration that the learners were not registered at all for grade 10, 11 and 12. And we've been running like headless chickens for the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Goodness, that is a disaster. Karen, it's
Absolutely.
A tutoring center. Why did you make the decision to move your child or children to this particular center?
So for me, specifically because I wanted that individual attention, right? So that was viable for me at that time. And that is why I made the decision to move my daughter over, because that is what she required at that point in time. I even moved over my grade 7 son, my son doing grade 7 as well. And that was one of the main reasons I moved him there. It looked viable at the time and they were happy there at the time.
Yeah. So Riaz, you say that you've got no record of grade 10, 11, and of course now for grade 12. So over the past 2 years, since 2023, when you enrolled your child in the school, what evidence of teaching and learning were you able to see?
Okay, so just a point of correction. So like I said, the records that I have are physical reports with actual marks, signed and stamped by the principal as well as a teacher in the school, all on a letterhead of the school. So that was the portfolio of evidence that my child had completed that particular grade and had been promoted to the next. In terms of learning material, we've got WhatsApp text that was sent to the child that we had to withdraw from the WhatsApp and then print and then work from. In terms of the curriculum, it did follow the CAPS curriculum. So we used those worksheets. We used to print the worksheets. The kid used to come home from school. Then we printed for him and he works through those worksheets. So that was the evidence that we have in terms of actual learning material. Over and above that, there was 1 or 2 tests and assessments which we reviewed. And we then obviously saw where the weaknesses were. And then in terms of getting additional support through other tutors or private tutors, that is how we basically went through it. But we do have a portfolio of evidence. The questionnaires and the exam papers that were issued at the time, those were given as hard copies from the school to the learner at the time of the exam, but the hard copies were then retrieved from the learners before they left.
Yeah, and this is the first year that the school ostensibly would be running matric exams, to your knowledge?
Yes.
Correct, yes. So I've also have other parents who have had children at the school from grade 8. So they've been at the school from grade 8. And like I said, I enrolled my son in from grade 10. So the school has been active prior to 2023.
So Karen, from the information that we have here, even the report cards that you and Riaz have received, they're essentially invalid. They're not worth the paper they're printed on.
Correct. It's fictitious marks. We don't know what these children are actually capable of doing, because since I've moved my kids over, they've achieved above 90, and I know for a fact that my child wouldn't score that high. Not that I'm, questioning her capabilities, but it was fictitious results.
So the principal, who is someone called Elise Ferris, she's the principal and owner of the school. She told the parents, both of you included Karen, that the school wasn't registered. Is that right? She told you in January of this year that the school wasn't registered, but that she was working to fix that.
Correct.
And what have you heard from her since?
Nothing. Because I made the decision then to move my children, because initially she gave us the name of the tutoring center that would be assisting us to register our children for the matric exams under his registration number, since he is a registered school and registered.
Yeah.
We then made the decision that we might as well move the children to his school. And that's when I made the decision. I'm not going to listen to the lies any longer, because it's just, we're not getting any results from her. No communication, nothing, and I moved my kids immediately.
So for both of you, and perhaps Karen, you can answer this first. Your children now, I mean, I can't imagine what you're going through, but for your children now, they obviously face the prospect of very likely having to repeat academic years, Karen.
Correct. My daughter is in an emotional state. She hasn't been eating since this news broke. I mean, they look forward to this final year of their lives. Matric jackets have been designed and everything. She is an emotional wreck. I don't know how to comfort her as a mother. I broke down today after so many weeks, and obviously for her now to get the news she needs to repeat the grade she's already completed is devastating.
Riaz?
Yeah, some similar story to Karen's. It's like I said, we obviously have been doing quite a bit of investigations, and right now my son will be turning 18 in July. And if we have to go back to a mainstream school, the feedback that we've received so far is that the children would have to go from grade 10. That places him at an age of 21 in matric. And to go and put an 18-year-old into a grade 10 environment, the kids will not see this as a problem with the school. He'll be targeted. I can foresee bullying happening. And all of that, and it is extremely distressing for myself and my family, because we had plans for him. We had arranged further education after this, and all of that has now been put on hold because we don't know where we stand right now.
If I can just ask both of you, what were the fees you were paying, the annual fees at the school?
So it was monthly, 1,450 Rand. That's what I was paying.
Go ahead, Riaz.
Yeah, I started paying, I think it was 1,300 Rand, and obviously it increased, I think, by 10% or something like that per year. The last fees I was paying was 1,450 Rand. We also paid a registration fee in January, which needed to be paid to the registration school or company that is dealing with the registration. So there's quite a bit of funding that has taken place. Over and above that, it was the cost of spend on textbooks, the cost of transport over the 3 years, the cost of clothing. It was a school where there was no uniform, so it was civil clothing service, and we had to obviously invest in that. So there's quite a bit of money that was spent over the 3 years.
Well, in the region of around 20,000 Rand a year. Can I just ask, you said that there's a real prospect now, Riaz, that your child would have to go back to grade 10. Have you done those assessments? Are you able to do the kinds of assessments to check whether any of the curriculum for grade 10 or 11 have been done?
No, not as yet. After this morning's interview with 947, a gentleman at the Department of Education did reach out to me, requesting names and ID details for the learners, so that they can see where they can place the learners into a mainstream school. That particular schools, this is to my understanding, will then have to do baseline assessments.
Right.
They'll do a baseline assessment on grade 11, and if the child is good enough, they will then move him or her over to grade 12. If the child is lacking, then it will be a grade 11. And if the marks are extremely low, it would go back to grade 10.
Well, just for the sake of our viewers, we have tried to reach out to the principal and owner of the school, Elise Ferris. Our calls have gone unanswered. We're also told that the school has essentially been locked up. All signs have been removed and she has been uncontactable. Let me thank both of you for joining us. I know it can't be easy to talk about something that is so difficult for you and your families, but important to put the spotlight on this issue of schools that are not registered and perhaps to sound the alarm for other parents. We really wish you the best of luck on the next few months and how things turn out. Riaz Salih and Karen Damons, both parents who have been left in the lurch alongside their children at the school, which has turned out to be Bogus, a school in Florida, in Roodepoort, called the Pre-Primary Achievers Tutor Center. The principal and owner there, Elise Ferris, has so far been unreachable.